Hey, welcome to another episode of the InNOLEvation Mindset podcast powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. I am Mark McNees, your host. And in studio today, we have Jack Carmignani of Nextus Digital Solutions. Hey, Jack, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Hey guys, my name is Jack Carmignani. I'm initially from Philadelphia, and I moved to Naples, Florida when I was just growing up. I run Nextus Digital Solutions, a digital branding and design firm, and we now have a good number of contractors under our belt here, based out of FSU, and we help brands grow and scale online.
That's really, really cool. How long have you been going on, and when did you start?
We started about 3 years ago. It was right between my transfer between Miami and Florida State, funny enough.
Okay.
And it was the best decision I could have made that I could have ever possibly imagined. It was definitely a big change going from, finance and stock trading and things of that sort to now moving over to entrepreneurship. But it's been a good journey so far. So about 3.5 years.
Nice. Really interesting. So you said Miami?
Yeah. Went to Miami my freshman year, and I was a finance major, and it was fun for a little while, and then very quickly realized it wasn't for me.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about your background, because your accent does not sound like you're from Tallahassee or Miami. You sound like you're from the Northeast somewhere.
Yep.
Where are you from originally? And tell us a little bit about your upbringing and just kind of your life experience. Were you a rich kid? Were you a hand and mouth kid? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yep. So I grew up in Bucks County, right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it's a pretty cool little small town, area. It's Newtown. Got the Washington Crossing River and everything nearby. It's a fun environment. But I will say it was a little different growing up there compared to here. Florida is a very flourishing, vibrant community. Up north, everyone's a little bit tighter knit, a little tough around the edges. When I grew up, I was thankfully in a situation where I didn't have to, stress dramatically about finances and things of that sort. But I will say that my parents very quickly at a young age instilled in me to not live that as kind of a lifestyle, and that I had to build it for myself if I wanted to embrace that kind of mindset and living standard per se. All
right, cool. So were any of your parents or relatives entrepreneurs, or where did the entrepreneurship thing come from?
So it's actually kind of funny. So most of my family is lawyers and police, just almost everyone is lawyers or police in some way, shape, or form. And when I was younger, I quickly found out that I didn't like the idea of the corporate structure.
All right.
With all the, strict set expectations and curriculum and everything of that sort, having to go to the box, little box offices with a suit and tie and everything.
Yeah,
I wanted something a little different. And that led me to find entrepreneurship, because it gave me the freedom to kind of build the style that I wanted to have in my own business rather than having to comply to somebody else's.
How did that happen? Was it modeled for you? Did you have a mentor? Was there somebody you were looking up to? You read a book? How did that idea come to you?
Yeah, so initially it started just from the fact that, entrepreneurship has always been with me. When I was in high school and when I was in middle school, I was constantly trying to find little businesses I could run on the side to make money. I was running a resale business. I was running a software company. I was creating bots for, buying out limited edition stock, everything that you could possibly come up with computers.
Nice.
And then that interest of kind of code and things of that sort ended up leading me to meet somebody at a gym that I met, a good friend of mine. And we started the kind of foundation for what is now Nextus as kind of just a freelance little partnership gig kind of thing.
All right, nice.
Great kid. Unfortunately, he had a little different moral standings than me when it came to business. Coming from a family of lawyers, I was very, very cautious about, what you can and can't say, what you can and can't put into writing. He had a different view on that.
Yeah.
So we ended up going our separate ways. We're still friends to this day.
That's great.
But he had the sales skills and I had the coding background, and we kind of were bouncing ideas around saying, hey, how can we create something with our skill sets? And that's what came to be the agency. And then over time, I just kind of built it and grew it just from, watching videos, reading books, kind of just learning from experience. Now I thankfully have a couple mentors, so that kind of helps me guide down the right path, especially now that we've been growing and have more people. But I'd say the majority of the skill set aspect of it and the majority of the kind of just business development on the image of where I want it to be in, 5-10 years kind of thing, that's just grown just from my life experience and what I'm ideally looking for in a company.
Nice. So tell us exactly what your company does. What's your ideal client that you know, if you met somebody and if they said, "Hey, I'm having issues with this," what would they say where you'd be like, "Oh, I'm your guy. You need to do some business with me."
Here to laugh at this answer, but anytime someone says that a business isn't working, that's exactly what I like to hear.
In what regards?
In the digital aspect.
Okay.
So since we do websites, branding, illustration, design, marketing, basically the whole kind of online business charade in air quotes. When someone says, "Hey, I'm having issues with conversions," or "Hey, I'm having issues scaling, I'm not getting, high clicks or engagement," any kind of, difficulty with online business growth, that's where we come in and say, "Hey, we can fit that kind of criteria that you're looking to fit and resolve your problem."
So can you flesh that out for me a little
Absolutely.
bit and give me, are we talking like traditional brick and mortar type businesses? Are we talking about, law firms? Are we talking about influencers? Who are we talking about?
Yep. So target market has kind of been a little bit of an adaptable process over the years. When we first started, we primarily worked with luxury clothing companies and everything of that sort, kind of as our primary focus. So we were doing watches, jewelry, basic clothing, kind of, e-commerce brands, right? And then over time, as we kind of developed our portfolio around the luxury jewelry and things of that sort, that started giving us access to some higher profile clients that already had businesses established in other categories. So, when you're pushing a $2,000 watch, selling a $2,000 watch for a company, and you can get sales for that, suddenly someone else who's selling a $100 product that has a much bigger business goes, "Oh, you can sell a $2,000 product, you can probably sell my $100 product."
Right.
And then one of the kind of cool programs we added for our salespeople and for our team was that we allowed them to target the niches that were interesting to them.
Okay.
And obviously some niches aren't going to fit that. So if someone says, "Hey, I want to work with vitamin companies," we haven't worked with vitamins, right? So that's going to be a little bit of a different niche than what we're used to. But traditionally we work with e-commerce brands and we tie them into existing niches. So right now we're working with like fitness supplement companies, and then we had a wine brand. That wine brand we tied in because we said we work with regulated consumables because the supplements are regulated.
Right.
So a lot of e-commerce brands, but I would say we tie it in with some companies that were brick and mortar and have the accessibility to be able to, have a brick and mortar store and then also work with us.
Okay. So are you essentially helping them with their SEO and things like that, or is that right?
So SEO is part of it. I would say it's actually probably our least common part of it.
Okay.
Because I think traditionally a lot of the medium-sized, small-sized business owners don't have the focus on SEO just because it's not directly leading to conversions for them unless they have an established site that's already getting some serious growth. Content creation is a big one because, we produce kind of short film, kind of commercial styled movies that can drive some clicks and some growth. Websites are a huge one. We just had a client where we quadrupled their conversion rate in 2 months with a new website design and brand style. And then the big one we're really pushing right now is what we call kind of branding packages, where we do everything for your company. So you basically come to us, say, "Hey, I have an idea. How do I establish this business?" We create you all the assets you need, the content style, the emotions you're looking to sell, basically the whole tie-in, so you have a map for where you want to go, essentially.
Okay, totally get it. All right, so that's really, really interesting. So in your time at Jim Moran College, and you're a senior or a
last semester senior?
Last semester senior. Okay, cool. So how has FSU and or Jim Moran College kind of supported you in your journey of Nextus?
Yep. It's been good. It's been very interesting too. I initially, I'll tell you, at Miami, I don't like ever speaking poorly about anything. At Miami, the teachers weren't what I needed, and kind of the guidance factor. And here at the JMC College, I've gotten some amazing guidance. One of those teachers being you. So far, I've learned a lot in your class. I don't really think about ethics traditionally with a marketing agency, but kind of having that separate approach helps me deal with some clients. And then another great professor I learned from was Ron.
Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely
Ron
love
Fraser.
him. Yep,
Nice.
Ron Fraser, Professor Ron. He has been an incredible experience and motivator. I really liked learning from his experience and what he acconched because
He's a great guy.
It's so unlikely, and that kind of lets you get a little reality check on, hey, everything's obtainable.
Right.
And I mean, all the professors here have been great. It's been a phenomenal experience. It's just it's an all-around great community, and I think I wouldn't be where I am today without the teachers, and then also without the people in the program as well. Half my team is built out of JMC students.
Nice.
So it's been awesome.
Have you taken advantage of the micro grant? Do you know what that is?
Yes. So I haven't taken advantage of it. And part of that is because of the fact that my time allocation is nonstop every single day I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be able to allocate time, 3 hours to go get a pitch and everything of that sort, the time allocation is tough to justify per se. The grant would be incredibly helpful, and it's a very generous opportunity for majority of businesses, but I don't personally have any direct expenses that I would put that money towards outside of potentially marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably have to allocate, 3-5 hours to go set up a pitch deck for that grant. And then those 3-5 hours could be used towards helping a client per se.
Okay. So 3-5 hours for a $5,000 grant would be $1,500 to $1,000 an hour. So
yeah, I don't think it's a bad deal by any means. I think it's more of the fact that if I allocate time away from the clients that I currently have, then it could become detrimental because my time is already nonstop booked. Like for instance, we have a client right now where we have web designers on our team, but I handle the majority of the website development. You want something done right, you got to do it yourself sometimes.
Okay.
And I've been doing websites for 8 years. So that's kind of where I got settled in Nextus initially. That website development skill is very, very valuable for our brand because, with web retainers and things of that sort, it's a great source of revenue. It's a great source of clients. It's a just all around good part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I work on these websites 8-10 hours a day.
Okay.
They say, hey, I need a new plugin installed. Hey, I need some custom coding. Hey, I need new products added. I need whatever other functionality, pre-sales, etc. To install all those factors, it's, 6-7 hours a day right now. And obviously I want to fix that to where I don't have to be working in the business and can be working on the business, full time. But when we have those web clients, it's hard to allocate time elsewhere away from them because they're expecting my time per se.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come in and do the InNOLEvation Mindset.
Absolutely. It's an awesome opportunity.
There's no financial reward for it. You're just giving it. But hopefully you can find some content in this that can help your business and things like that. So that's really cool. So what are some of the unforeseen kind of pluses to being a founder that you've experienced that you didn't really see coming?
I would say freedom. You gain freedom a lot faster than you realize.
Okay.
When I started the company, I was expecting to be basically just almost like an employee or contractor of my clients. And we got lucky, I'd say. But we did it right, but we got a little lucky coming off the start where we were able to kind of set our standards, set our expectation, and we kind of sit in this perfect blended mode where we're not like an employee for the company, but we also are kind of friends of the company.
Okay.
Where, they can text us, say, hey, Jack, hey, whoever their contact source is on the company, can we hop on a quick call? I just want to run through some ideas with you, bounce some ideas around. We'll say, sure, absolutely. Some of these bigger agencies, they don't have that capability to be able to just text them and say, hey, can we hop on a quick phone call? It's, hey, here's our Calendly link. You can book 3 months out and you get 15 minutes of our time maximum. So we were able to blend our structuring in a way that puts us almost positioned as friends of the companies, as I said, and that allowed us a ton of freedom with how we kind of structure, how we operate, our day-to-day kind of team and everything of that sort. And then the other big factor that I would say that played into that was using contractors.
Okay.
Obviously, contractors, you don't have as much control over, as an employee comparatively, but the contractors kind of, initially, I didn't like the contractor structure. I wanted to have employees, but obviously with the financial aspect, you have to consider a lot of things with that. Yeah. But over time, I grew to like the contractor structure because it allows them to bring in their own creativity factor rather than me telling them, hey, this is how it needs to be. And some of our greatest ideas from the company have come from team members of ours where I've said, show me what you got.
Nice.
And yeah.
So on the other side of that question, what are some of the unexpected kind of hardships that you faced?
Okay. I'll say one of them is legal. Legal documents has been brutal to learn. And I said before, I come from a family of lawyers, so I'm a little used to the legal documents, but having to write them and everything of that sort, we have legal people that work on our contracts, but there's some times where I can't pay somebody $500 to go look at a document that's going to be worth $500 in the first place.
Right.
So I have to sit down and write out the contract, and it's been great to learn, but it has been ridiculously hard to truthfully get my head around, to where I can replicate it over and over again in a way that's reliable and consistent. The other factor that has been tough is probably resource management.
Okay.
Meaning getting at, like, trying to balance what subscriptions to have, what softwares you need, everything of that sort. You know, if you're working with a product-based business, it's a little different because, you know, you develop your product, you send it to your supplier, your costs are your supplier. For somebody like us, where we're a service, most of our costs are coming from subscriptions for automation systems, data analytics, things of that sort. Those add up very, very quickly. And coming into the business, starting off, I never saw that coming. I would think, oh, you know, it's $50 a month, $100 a month. We're getting up to, you know, $300, $400, $500 a month on software. And you look at it and you go, whoa, where's that stacking up from? And then the third challenge, I'd say, has been people. We've had a great set of contractors, but it is very difficult to learn to manage people when you can't, like, I can't allocate their hours because they're contractors. Right. So trying to balance that and then tying in, you know, the book we're reading in class, Switch. I've been using some of the tips from the rider and the elephant example.
Oh, nice.
Because I realized that I was primarily motivating with just the rider, the logic behind this situation.
Yeah, real quick, unpack the Switch, rider and the elephant.
So for those of you who don't know, Switch is a book that talks about kind of making changes in behavior. And they give one really, really good example that has stuck with me. I'm on chapter 5 right now. But the example is the rider and the elephant. And the idea is that every single business that you have, any kind of decision you need to make, it is structured off of 2 factors, or 3 if you include the path, but 2 major factors being emotion and logic. And you know, people have heard of that with pathos, ethos, logos kind of thing, but this is a more obtainable ideology of it. And the idea behind the rider and the elephant is that if you motivate the rider, that's great, but the elephant's still going to be the stronger one that drives the decision. And the rider keeps pulling against the elephant. Eventually the rider gets tired and just starts following the elephant. Yeah.
So in the analogy, the rider is the intellect. Yep. Like, hey, I want to do this, but the elephant is the emotion.
The driving personal force kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
And I realized that for the longest time, I was primarily only motivating my contractors with the rider, and I needed to tie in the emotion. And as of the last 2 weeks since I've started reading the book, we've been restructuring some of our plans for the contractors. I've been working with some of my team members who I treat a little bit more higher up, per se, in air quotes, where they have some managerial kind of roles. And those guys have been working with me to kind of structure our entire what I would call our new sales system that we're implementing with this new release of the company. The company's been out for 3.5 years, as I told you, but we're in the process of rebranding in a way. That rebrand is going to come with a lot of new, trying to find the right words for it without revealing too much, some new motivators for the sales agents that will definitely drive some action, hopefully, over just the logic and saying, hey, it's a smart choice to do this.
Nice. Yeah. So I've run and founded several companies, and I read Switch years ago, and I immediately implemented the rider, the elephant, the path to understand and try to solve every problem that we were coming across. Like if we had this goal and we weren't hitting it, I would always get around to my team, and I'm like, so what's the resistance here? Is it that our team doesn't intellectually get it? Has it not been clear enough? Or is there some sort of emotion saying we don't want to go there, or we're afraid, or something like that? Or is it the path? Is it that logistically, like we're all bought in, we emotionally want to go there, but there's not a clear path. We haven't cleared the path, or I, as the CEO, have not given you the resources to actually do that. And that whole idea that it's so simple to understand, and it gives everybody common language, and it's been transformational in my companies and my leadership team to be able to talk about it. Like, okay, well, which one is it? And then to have that conversation, and it's been such a good thing for all my organizations, and it's really primarily why I have all my students read Switch, is for that, because I feel like it's such an important tool for a leader. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Absolutely.
That's super, super cool. So, a podcast, I'm going to ask for some free advice here.
Go ahead.
Since I have you here. So, okay. So, podcast, for those who don't know, you essentially need to have about 10,000 views per episode to be able to monetize your podcast. And not that I necessarily want to monetize this podcast, but I'd like to be able to get to that point. I'm pretty happy we've gone 5X over the past year. This is a small little podcast. We went from about 100 views per episode to now we're around 500. So what's that? We need to do what, 20X? Is that right?
20X from where you are now?
Yeah.
Yeah, about there. Yeah.
All right. So we need to go 20X. So we don't spend any money on advertising. We don't have a website. We don't do this. So if we wanted to grow this thing, it's only happening for, I guess, algorithm and word of mouth right now. What would you recommend, putting you on the spot? And if you don't...
No, there's a couple of things that come to mind, but I can't promise anything's going to work because, to be honest, I don't work with podcasts, so I don't know. As much as I would love to work with podcasts down the line, I haven't had an experience with clients where I can say, we've seen this work for a previous podcast.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is a couple of things, and you've probably thought of them because you're an established business owner. You've done the motions.
I appreciate that. I probably haven't thought of it, but go ahead. Let's hear it.
Having some setup funnels is a big one. Funneling from social media to where people are kind of pulling from, Instagram or clips from Instagram. Maybe you have somebody posting little pieces of content snippets of the conversation that drives people to the account, then to the account to the YouTube or wherever else you want to funnel it. And then having some ads could be helpful if you haven't done that already. I know it's a little bit tricky because you're tied to FSU in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But if you're able to, monetize the advertising, you might be able to drive in some more targeted clicks from, specifically entrepreneurs or specifically people in our age group who would be potentially more interested. I'm a little dense. So could you unpack that a little bit more for me? Like what does that look like? What do you mean by that? Yeah. So if you wanted to, let's say, advertise on Facebook, right? And maybe Facebook isn't the right way to go. Maybe Instagram is because you're trying to target people our age who would watch people like them. If that's the case, then you would go on Instagram. Maybe you create reels, short form content. Maybe cutting and compiling the clips from the podcast and then kind of highlighting each episode. That would basically allow you to advertise those reels, push them out, and then you'd be able to use targeted advertising through meta ads to ideally drive to certain age groups, certain demographics. Maybe people just in Florida. Maybe you're just advertising to 20 to 23-year-olds in Florida who are business owners.
Right.
And if that's the case, those people are going to be highly targeted, much more likely to click onto it. The difference is actually setting up the ad platform to where it's actually doing what you want it to do and not having some minor discrepancy where you're suddenly getting 50-year-old grandmas who have no interest in business coming to you. So there's a ton of stuff you can do for it, but funnels are a big one. Advertising's a big one. And then brand identity could be another big one. And I think I mentioned that, before the podcast, we were talking about brand identity and things of that sort. But I think brand identity is a huge one. I haven't kind of taken a deep dive into your branding off the top of my head for the podcast, but if the podcast is a recognizable website, recognizable source of knowledge for, maybe it's 18-year-olds who are looking to get businesses set up and have no idea what's going on with businesses. If that's the case, then they should be able to come find your platform very easily and learn from the experience from the kids who are already going through it, right?
Yeah. So the branding, FSU, because we've grown and we got on their radar, so the branding is now totally dictated by FSU, and they do all the branding. I created basically the original logo was kind of an abstract renegade with some headphones on, speaking into a mic, and they did not appreciate that very much at all. So now it looks very like everything else FSU. And of course, we love the FSU brand, and we are so thankful for that.
Yep, I get it. And I guess another way you could potentially get it to reach more people, and again, this one's tricky because with FSU, is, I'm going to say controversial, but I don't mean it in a literal sense, but controversial topics or controversial points that you can highlight. Yeah. Let's say some kid comes in here and says something where you go, whoa, where'd that come from? Use that to your advantage, because the reason Joe Rogan and all these other podcasters get huge is because they get these little clips of, content where they're talking and someone goes, whoa, share that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You got to get that trendiness factor tied into it too.
The other thing I've been trying to do you know who, and hopefully I don't butcher his last name, he's the the FSU comedian who graduated, Bert Kirshner.
I know the name, but I don't know him personally.
He's the guy who takes his shirt off and all the comedy. So he's like known as like the world famous like FSU party king and like comedian and everything. I've like hit him up on social media in his direct messaging, but I haven't heard back from him yet. So I'd love to get him, like, because it's kind of interesting to me because he's an entrepreneur, right? He built a business on comedy and he's an FSU grad. And I'm like, well, he would be great. And we could do the podcast without our shirts on.
He built himself as the brand.
Right. Exactly. He's the brand.
Yeah. And frankly, I think with the podcast, that could be a good benefit for you too, because you got a likable personality. You got that kind of internet personality where, you know, people will flock to it. So if you make yourself part of the brand, I think that could be very, very helpful. I know obviously it's your podcast, but making it more identifiable to where it's Mr. McNees or Professor McNees. Yeah. Yeah.
So I say I have a personality like caviar. A little bit goes a long way, but a lot is overpowering.
I get it. I get it. It's funny.
So, well, cool. Well, I like to end the podcast. Oh, actually, sorry, I don't want to end the podcast. I have another question for you. So what are your challenges that you're working on, if you can say right now? Like, what's your next tier that you're trying to get to, and then what are you looking forward to, and where do you think this thing's going?
Absolutely. So our big step right now, and we've done this every year since we started, was we've done a rebranding of, or I'm going to say rebranding as a kind of loose term, but we've done a rebranding of Nextus almost every year since we've started.
Okay.
And it's kind of reiterations where the branding itself stays the same, but we unlock new parts of the business to the public, kind of advertise new portions. And every time we do that, it's made a big impact on our market and how we've grown. So like the first year when we did that, we opened up the doors for website development and things of that sort, because we were primarily doing marketing, and website development was kind of a thrown in little, oh, hey, you don't have a website. We have a guy that does the websites. Let me help you with that. But in most cases, we were just doing marketing. So the first iteration, we unlocked, website development and everything of that sort. Now we're trying to open up into digital products like plugins, web templates, things of that sort, where, our business owners that come to us and say, hey, I want to get a website done, but maybe don't have, 4 figures to get a website done properly. They can just buy one of our well-made templates, install it themselves, nice and easy. And then the other big thing that I'm really working towards is I'm trying to polish up my team. We have great people on our team, and we always have. But it's, as I mentioned before, it's hard to find the right balance of people who have that self-motivating factor where they're ready to gun just without, any extra, hey, here's a salary, here's extra benefits, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I've been really struggling to, or not as much as of recent, but for the longest time I was struggling with trying to find good people that really cared. And now we're starting to finally polish that system up, and those people that are coming in are starting to get situated officially.
Nice.
So the opening of the new products, the new website we're doing for our company, the new branding style, the new people, everything of that sort kind of balanced together should be a huge growth aspect for us, or potential benefit for us. It's definitely been difficult. I've been working nonstop till 5 a.m. on the new website and the new systems and automations and everything of that sort. And the big thing we're really pushing for now is data collection. So I kind of skipped that step when I started the business initially, because I was like, oh, I don't need, people aren't coming to my website. They're all coming to me. I don't need to worry about data collection, everything of that sort. And as we've been working with clients, I start seeing where they've got email lists of 40,000 people, and I go, wow. I don't have an email list right now. So the new website's being set up to where everything's for data collection, kind of organizing data to allow us to analyze it. Obviously, we're not going to do anything with that for anyone watching, but point being is it's more for kind of our own analysis to understand where our consumers are coming from, to help our own contractors be able to see the data, to see what kind of impact they're making and things of that sort. So I'm trying to set up the systems behind it, per se, because I heard a quote recently, and I forget what the exact phrasing was, but it was something along the lines of, an idea is just an idea, but a business is the system behind the idea.
Right.
And I realized that, okay, we've got a good system on the client side of things, but on the back end side of things, to replicate and reproduce this strategy, we need the data. So that's another big kind of challenge I've been working on, and it's going great. We're using Notion and Zapier, but it's been a long time in the coming. I've been working on it for about 3 weeks now, and probably spending, if we're including client web work just on the side, probably about 10 hours a day doing website design for the past 3 weeks. It's been rough. Wow.
Well, it's good to be busy. So one of my sayings is ideas are not special. People who can make productive systems are special.
Absolutely.
And because everybody has ideas. I had like 20 ideas on the way, here, or probably more, and I'm not going to do anything with them. Everybody has ideas all the time. But the person that can take that idea and make a system to produce a tangible result is truly a special person.
That's how you achieve the success.
That's right. Exactly. So, What's your plans? I don't know if you know, or is this something that you want to grow and be the CEO, forever and retire with this thing? Are you looking to be bought out and do something else? And I'm not going to hold you to it, but how are you thinking about this business?
So my long-term image for the company, truthfully, is I don't want to sell it. I want to grow it until the time I'm done working.
Okay.
I want to have other businesses. I essentially long-term want to be a serial entrepreneur, where we use Nextus as kind of a benchmark or a baseline to get other businesses off the ground with the skill set and team that we have, right? Because if I got people that can do websites, illustrations, marketing, I got people for all that on Nextus, then I can use those same people to replicate for other businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to use Nextus as a baseline benchmark, but truthfully, designing brands is kind of my passion. The website aspect, having the creative kind of tying everything together, the storyline, the fonts, the colors, everything of that sort. I truthfully appreciate it. And as a kid, when I would go into, stores like Louis Vuitton and things like that, I would always see that and I would go, I'm not here to buy anything, but the branding looks really cool. I love it. So I want to be able to do that for other brands because I think it's a hugely impactful element towards getting a business to be successful, having that brand identity. So that's where my passion lies. Long term, I want to grow the company. Right now we're decentralized. We've got people in LA, we've got people in Miami, we've got people in Ohio, everywhere. And we all work great decentralized, but the idea is that long term I want to centralize it. Hopefully somewhere like Miami or something like that where it's a business hub and modern and fun. And with everything going on with the world right now, my long-term vision for the company is to eventually get an office that has units built into it, rent like apartment units, let's say in Miami, and basically rent to our team for dirt cheap so that they can have very nice housing without having to worry about, paying $2,000 in rent every month because that's a huge problem for society right now where it's just renters, renter's paradise. And I feel like that's where a lot of people, our generation, are having a hard time getting on their feet. Outside, if they don't have any,
it's a real problem.
Rental or anything like that. It's getting the housing, getting the renting, and even if they're renting, is renting affordable without getting a 200 square foot studio?
Yeah.
No. So the idea is that I want to be able to provide that for the team with basically have the office space and have the apartments on top of it that are nice apartments where they can rent, live for basically dirt cheap, and then provide for the company and make life easier for them. So that's kind of the long-term goal I have for Nexus.
Nice. Cool. Well, best of luck. My dad used to always say, and I think every dad said this, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yep.
So,
heard that from my own dad.
Yeah, I think that's a total dad thing to say, but I think it's true.
Yep.
So, and you definitely have that work ethic. So, Jack, I always like to end the podcast asking the entrepreneur this question.
Yep.
If today, Jack, 2025 February, Jack, could go back 4 years, whatever, and tell Jack 4 years ago, before that Jack started Nextus, and you could tell yourself one thing, what would you tell yourself?
Talk to more people. And I am a social butterfly. I talk to everyone. But I think one big piece I missed out on was when I was at Miami, it was a new experience for me because of my college experience. That was 4 years ago when I was at Miami, just about. And when I was at Miami, I didn't talk to that many people, just directly because I didn't have a ton of need for it. After a few months there, I realized that I wasn't going to be staying there. And I said, okay, well, it's not like I'm going to be keeping any of these friends. I'm going to be moving across the country.
Right.
And I don't know what to do with that. So I talked to some people, but since I came to FSU, I talked to everyone. Like I can go up to anyone in the program and I've had a conversation with them at some point.
Nice.
And I wasn't like that at Miami. And I truthfully wish I was because there's some great kids there as well. Whatever else about the city is the city.
Yeah.
But there's some great kids there that I met, and I wish I had met more because some of the people that I had met from Miami were some of my greatest resources starting the business. So if I had met even more people, I think we would have been even astronomically farther ahead now because it would have all compiled onto it. That I think it's just good to have connections. I think networking is a huge benefit in this generation. I think more than it ever has been. You know, if we're going for a job nowadays, if you know somebody, chances are you got the job. Obviously, it's always been that way to some extent, but I feel like outside factors were more influential back, 20 years ago than what they are now. So I think having as many connections as possible could be the greatest benefit to a small business owner or somebody like me 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest non-tangibles that is out there, that the stronger your network, authentic network, the more opportunities that you're going to have, because people like to do business with people they know and they like. And that's just a fact. And if they don't know you, they can't like you. And they're definitely going to, be more apt to be like, oh, I remember Jack, and he does this and we have this problem. Well, let's give him a call.
Stay on top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Revel, who's a local business leader here, and if you don't know him, you should definitely meet him. He likes to say that, and I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but I think it's pretty profound. He said, it's not who you know, it's what the people who you know think of you when they think of you.
It's their perspective.
Yeah, it's their perspective about you. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually true, because if a lot of people and they think you're a jerk face, that's not what you want. But and I'm like, that just takes that idea a little bit farther. Well, Jack, best of luck in the future, and really do appreciate you taking the time coming in.
Yep. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a great opportunity, and I hope to get the chance to talk to you about some business, more either on the podcast or outside of it.
Of course, absolutely.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the InNOLEvation Mindset, powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Hey, if you like this episode, be sure to like it and share it, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another amazing episode. We will see you next time.